Hello again, and thanks for staying with us. So a number of organizations with the names of struggle stalwarts are calling for a national dialogue to forge a way forward to unite South Africa. This comes as talks between the ANC and the DA hit a snag, at least insofar as the Government of National Unity is concerned. Let's try and make sense of what exactly this call entails. Lindiwe Gadd is a member of the Chief Albert Luthuli Foundation and, in fact, represents the 9 foundations that are making this call for a national dialogue. She joins us now live via our video link. And it's great to have you on the program, Lindiwe. Thanks very much indeed for making time to speak to us. South Africans have had around about 24 hours to make sense and digest this call. And a number of questions, of course, are coming up. One of them that certainly, I suppose, stood out is questions around how we'll begin setting the agenda for a dialogue like this, given the myriad of challenges that we're facing in contemporary South Africa.
Thank you, and thank you to your viewers. To address your question, we were very clear in our statement that we issued yesterday, saying that we have no preconceptions around the agenda for this. We would like to engage with representatives of various civil society organizations, business, etc., religious organizations, and to jointly set the agenda for this. Our role as the 9 foundations really comes from the fact that our view is that South Africa is not where any, proud South African would want it to be after 30 years of democracy. We are beset by myriad problems, service delivery being the greatest of all of those problems that we have. If you look at the state of our hospitals, at the state of our schools, etc., those are serious problems that we find ourselves with, unfortunately. And with the fact that it's very difficult for individual South Africans to engage with government and have a voice with government, given the fact that we have a proportional representation system. We do not have constituencies. We felt that it's necessary for a dialogue to take place between South Africans across all spheres of society, setting the agenda that would really inform, that we would want to see informing the government agenda, the agenda of civil society over the medium to long term.
Yeah. South Africa is known for being a diverse society, and sometimes what that comes with is a polarizing effect. It's good to hear that there's an appeal to all sectors of society, but how do we prevent this from becoming some kind of echo chamber, this kind of kumbaya gathering of people who all agree on the same things and are likely to sing from the same hymn book about what the solutions ought to look like?
Well, we envisage this as being a bottom-up process, really representing the breadth and depth of South Africa, from rural to urban areas. Rural communities do need to have and absolutely must have a voice in plotting the way forward for South Africa going forward. So we would want to engage with organizations which represent the breadth of the country in order to ensure that those voices do come forward. And importantly, I must say that one of the misconceptions that may be existing out with the public is that we're not talking about bringing forward a conference. This is a dialogue that will take place over a process, which would take place over a period of time, so that we are able to reach the furthest reaches of the country in order to make this real. The other thing that we're very clear about, whilst we're not setting the agenda ourselves, we are very clear that this must result in a program of action, and we would want to see that program of action adopted by government, adopted by parliament, adopted by civil society, and that this should inform policy and how South Africa is governed going forward in the interests of her people.
Right, and that's exactly, in fact, was my next question. You know, what in your mind is the end result of whatever takes place over the next coming days, weeks, months, perhaps even years, given just how much we need to wrap our heads around? But since you're speaking about this kind of program of action, in my mind, that would be, you know, contained in some kind of report. And sadly, we live in a country where we could spend a lot of time diagnosing problems, drawing out a prognosis, and reflecting a decade later around the extent to which none of that has been implemented. You know, people talk about reports gathering dust somewhere in a presidential office. Is that something that you are worried about, especially because, we're having this conceptual discussion technically without a government in place?
Correct. And I think part of the challenge that we have in getting our heads around what is being proposed here is that because of the type of democracy that we have, we don't have a participatory democracy. And therefore, there is a lot of cynicism out in the public and exhaustion with initiatives such as this. We are very clear that what must result from this are very, very practical steps which can address the lived realities of South Africans, and that those, as we say, must inform the program of the Government of National Unity and governments going forward. We're looking towards a program which would really, when we sit back 30 years from now, for those of you who will be here, we should be able to say that this is a milestone. This is a change in how South Africa operates.
Yeah. Yesterday in the briefing, there was a mention of setting up some kind of structure and bringing on board, credible leaders in communities who will hopefully bring a lot of credibility to this initiative. And I wonder what the first step in getting that right you reckon is. I mean, do we have names already perhaps that are flying around? What becomes the first step in trying to get those people to back this?
At the moment, we are an interim structure, and we've taken up the challenge of saying we're putting our foot forward to say that we would like to participate and initiate this. But this is not our program. This is the program that belongs to the people of South Africa. One of the things that we do have in this country is a myriad of civil society and community-based organizations. We have business organizations. We have strong union organizations. We would want to engage with youth organizations who represent a large number of the unemployed, with women's organizations. Those are organizations which work at a ground-based and grassroots level. They will be able to inform us of, which organizations can be part of this. We're not a country which is short of community-based organizations. What is necessary in this initiative is to harness those organizations and institutions which already exist. If, for example, I could give the example, if you look at faith-based organizations, they are existing in every single corner of our country. They have an amazing infrastructure and an amazing reach. How can we work with faith-based organizations to ensure that when we are in community X or community Y, those community members can come to the meetings and engage in the conversations?
Absolutely. Look, we're facing a number of challenges in this country, and I suppose any solution is most welcome. So with that, wish you certainly all the very best in trying to get this right. Lindiwe Gadd is with the Chief Albert Luthuli Foundation and represents those 9 organizations that banded together yesterday to make that clarion call for a national dialogue.